What happens when two powerful women with unshakable voices collide on live television? The result is not just a heated exchange, it's an unforgettable storm that leaves the audience gasping, the cameras trembling, and the world talking long after the show has ended. And this is exactly what happened when Angelina Jolie sat down on The View, only to be confronted by Sunny Hostin in a clash that no one saw coming. Before we dive into the firestorm that unfolded, make sure you subscribe to Stage Storm right now, hit that like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because you won't want to miss a single explosive story like this one. Now, let's step into that studio. The air was already heavy that morning. The audience, buzzing with anticipation, knew something special was about to unfold. Angelina Jolie, the global icon, the humanitarian, the actress whose very presence commands silence, was walking onto the stage. She moved with that familiar grace, her dark eyes scanning the set, her smile calm but cautious, as though she was aware that this wasn't just another interview. This was The View, a place where celebrities are often disarmed, sometimes ambushed, and always tested. The women of the panel leaned forward as Angelina took her seat. Whoopi Goldberg adjusted her glasses with that knowing expression, Joy Behar cracked a joke to lighten the mood, while Sarah Haynes smiled warmly. But Sunny Hostin? Sunny's eyes never left Angelina. There was something in her gaze, sharp, deliberate, almost daring. It was as though Sunny had been waiting for this very moment, her questions sharpened like blades, hidden just behind her composed demeanor. The first few minutes went smoothly enough. Angelina spoke about her latest film, her humanitarian work, and the causes that kept her moving across continents. The audience listened intently, hanging on her every word, applauding at the right moments. But beneath that applause, a simmering tension was beginning to build. Sunny leaned in, her voice calm, but with an edge that cut through the polite conversation. Angelina, you've built a reputation as a humanitarian, as someone who fights for children, for women, for the vulnerable. But some critics say that while you advocate globally, your own family life has been complicated. How do you reconcile that? The studio fell silent. The question wasn't just sharp, it was personal. You could hear the shift in the audience, a collective gasp hidden behind polite silence. Angelina's smile faltered for the briefest moment, her eyes flickering in Sunny's direction. Angelina's voice, smooth but firm, answered, I think every parent faces challenges, Sunny. My children are my world, and like any family, we've had struggles. But what I do globally, that's not separate from my family. It's part of teaching them compassion, resilience, and strength. Sunny didn't blink. She pressed on. But when those struggles become public, when custody battles, accusations, and private disputes make headlines, doesn't that undermine the very image you've built as a protector of children? People see contradictions. Gasps echoed again, louder this time. Joy shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Whoopi gave a low hum, signaling trouble was brewing. Angelina leaned back slightly, her hands clasped together. Her composure was flawless, but inside, her heart was pounding. The cameras caught it all, the tightening of her jaw, the faint flash of irritation in her eyes. She spoke slowly, carefully. Contradictions exist in every life. I don't live to create an image, I live to raise my children, to protect them, and to help where I can. The world is complicated, Sunny. Families are complicated. But my love for my children is not up for debate. The audience applauded, but it was uneven, some clapping in support, others hesitating, unsure whether they were witnessing courage or deflection. Sunny wasn't satisfied. She leaned closer, her tone sharper now. Do you think the public has the right to question how you balance being an activist with being a mother? Or is it all untouchable? Angelina's lips parted slightly, as if caught between restraint and fire. She turned her head, looking not just at Sunny, but at the entire panel, at the audience, at the millions watching at home. Her voice dropped softer, but heavy with emotion. The public can question what they want. But my children are not for public consumption. They are my heart. And I will not let anyone, reduce them to a headline or a talking point. The studio erupted. Some in the audience cheered loudly, others whispered in shock. The tension between Sunny and Angelina had now reached a boiling point. The other hosts exchanged wary glances, unsure whether to step in or let the clash play out. Sunny's eyes narrowed, her jaw tightening. For a split second, the camera caught the fire in her expression. It wasn't just about a question anymore. It was a confrontation, a battle of wills, live, unedited, unstoppable. And that's when everything began to unravel. The unraveling began slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a thread being pulled from the seam of a tightly woven garment. Angelina sat poised, her frame still elegant under the bright studio lights, but her eyes, those piercing eyes that once silenced entire red carpets, now burned with restrained fury. Sunny Hostin didn't flinch. She leaned forward, her elbows resting on the table, her voice sharp as steel but measured enough to cut without drawing immediate blood. Angelina, you're admired by millions, but admiration doesn't shield you from accountability. You've spoken about saving children across the globe, but some say charity begins at home. There are reports, painful, public ones, about estrangement, about distance between you and some of your children. Isn't that contradiction fair to question? The room shifted. The audience gasped audibly now, their discomfort hanging thick in the air. The panel froze, Sarah Haynes biting her lip nervously, Joy Behar darting her eyes toward Whoopi, silently asking if someone should intervene. Angelina inhaled slowly, her fingers curling slightly against the desk. Her voice, when it came, was low, deliberate, a velvet warning. I will answer many questions about myself. But when it comes to my children, no. That line, Sunny, is not yours to cross. Not here. Not ever. The audience burst into applause, relieved to side with the dignity of a mother under fire. But Sunny pressed on, her words unrelenting. I respect your role as a mother, Angelina, but you've chosen a life in the spotlight. When that life intersects with personal choices that contradict your public stance, people wonder, are they seeing the real Angelina Jolie, or an image carefully managed to inspire sympathy and admiration? Angelina's head turned sharply now, her jaw tightening as though to keep her words contained. Her chest rose and fell more quickly. The facade of calm was cracking, and the audience felt it. They leaned in, hungry, fearful, unable to look away. Her eyes locked on Sunny's. You think you know my life because you've read headlines? You think you understand my family because of court filings? You don't. You don't know the nights I've stayed awake holding my children's hands. You don't know the choices I've had to make, the danger I've pulled them out of. You don't know, Sunny. You can't possibly know. There was a tremor in her voice now, not weakness, but intensity, the kind that comes from wounds too deep to casually expose. The audience applauded again, louder this time, almost protective. But Sunny's silence lingered like a shadow, daring her to continue. Joy Behar finally tried to break the tension. Well, I think we can all agree raising kids, any kids, is tough business. Angelina, I had 2 kids and couldn't even keep the dog alive, so God bless you for even trying. The audience laughed, grateful for the comic relief. But the laughter died almost instantly when Angelina didn't join in. Her expression remained unbroken, fixed entirely on Sunny. Sunny's next words landed like a hammer. So when you tell the world you fight for children, do you ever stop and ask if the world is questioning how you fight for your own? The gasp was immediate, louder, harsher, an audible wound in the crowd. A woman in the front row shook her head in disbelief. Someone whispered, Too far. Even Whoopi, usually calm and detached, raised her hand slightly, as though to halt the blow before it did permanent damage. But it was too late. Angelina's composure shattered. She leaned forward, her voice no longer silky, but sharp, clipped, almost trembling with rage. How dare you? You sit there, across from me, and presume to question my love for my children? My sacrifices? You reduce everything I have lived, everything I have fought for, to some cheap contradiction? I have walked into war zones, Sunny. I have carried children out of bomb shelters. I have spent years battling courts, battling fear, battling to give them a life. Don't you dare, don't you ever, question that. Her words echoed through the studio, bouncing off the silent audience like thunder. Sunny blinked, stunned for a moment, but quickly recovered, her tone softer but still deliberate. "I'm not questioning your love, Angelina. I'm asking if you see how the world questions your choices. And whether you're willing to confront that perception." Angelina's hands tightened into fists on the desk. She stared, unblinking, her breath audible in the microphone. The audience didn't dare move. The tension was unbearable, thick as smoke. Whoopi Goldberg finally intervened, her deep voice rumbling through the silence. "Okay, hold on. Let's all take a breath. Angelina, Sunny, we're live. We're not here to tear anybody apart." But the damage was done. The confrontation had carved its mark deep into the atmosphere of the studio. Angelina turned away for a moment, trying to steady herself, her chest rising and falling with visible effort. Then, just as quickly, she looked back, her voice steady but icy. "You think you're holding me accountable. But what you're really doing, Sunny, is playing with lives you don't understand. And I won't sit here and let you turn my children into your headline." The applause was immediate, thunderous, a wave of support crashing over the set. But even as the audience stood for her, Angelina's face betrayed the storm raging inside her. Her lips pressed tight, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for the glass of water in front of her. Sunny leaned back now, silent, her expression unreadable. But the silence was heavy, loaded, a silence that said the battle wasn't over, it was merely paused. The camera zoomed in on Angelina's face. For the first time in the interview, her eyes glistened, her mask of invincibility flickering. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly, as if fighting back emotions that had no place under the merciless glare of live television. The audience could feel it. Something was about to break. And in that moment, with the weight of millions watching, Angelina Jolie, the woman known for her poise, her grace, her iron composure, was beginning to unravel in front of the world. The clash was far from over. The silence that followed was not peace, it was pressure, thick and suffocating, like the air just before a violent storm. Angelina Jolie sat rigid, her hands trembling ever so slightly against the desk, her composure visibly slipping. The cameras caught it, the audience felt it, and Sunny Hostin knew it. The tension was a living thing now, crawling across the studio, pulsing with each second of silence. The audience members shifted in their seats, their faces pale with anticipation, as though they could sense they were about to witness something that would be replayed for years to come. Angelina inhaled sharply, her chest rising with a controlled fury. She turned her head slightly, her eyes finding Sunny's again, and for a moment, there was no panel, no audience, no cameras, just the two of them locked in a battle of will and fire. Sunny's voice finally broke the silence, deceptively calm, but each word chosen like a dagger. "You speak of sacrifice, Angelina. But sacrifice is not only in the headlines or in the war zones. Sacrifice is in the home, behind closed doors. And some would say." Angelina slammed her palm against the desk, the sound cracking like thunder through the studio. The audience gasped in unison. "Stop. Just stop." Her voice rose, powerful, raw, carrying with it years of buried pain and anger. Her tone was no longer polished for interviews or softened for diplomacy. It was primal, desperate, unfiltered. "Do you think I don't know the sacrifices in the home? Do you think I haven't bled for them, cried for them, given everything I am to them? You sit there, judging me, turning my life into your interrogation. But you have no idea what I've lived through. None." The audience erupted into a storm of cheers and applause, some rising to their feet. But it wasn't enough to soothe the fire raging inside her. Sunny's lips parted, as if to respond, but Angelina cut her off sharply, her voice trembling with both fury and grief. "Do you know what it's like to wake up every day fighting to keep your family safe? To walk into a courtroom where strangers decide your child's future? To read lies printed about you and know your children will see them? You don't know, Sunny. You can't know." Tears now threatened at the corners of her eyes, glistening in the unforgiving studio lights. The audience leaned forward, transfixed, as if the air itself had been sucked from the room. Whoopi shifted in her chair, her deep voice trying to anchor the storm. Angelina, maybe we need to take a pause here. Let's all breathe, okay? But Angelina wasn't listening. Her gaze swept across the panel, across the cameras, across the unseen millions watching at home. Her voice cracked but grew louder, fueled by something unstoppable. I have lived for my children. Every choice I've made, every sacrifice, every scar, do not dare tell me I haven't done enough. Do not reduce my life to your sound bites. The audience was on its feet now, some clapping furiously, others stunned into silence. A few whispered anxiously to each other, unsure whether they were watching an interview or a breakdown. Sunny, still composed, spoke quietly, almost too quietly, but the microphone carried her words like shards of glass. No one is saying you haven't done enough, Angelina. But the question is, do you believe you've done it perfectly? Angelina froze, her breath catching audibly. Something in that question snapped the fragile thread holding her together. Her face flushed, her eyes filled with both rage and anguish, and she shook her head violently. I don't owe you perfection, she shouted, her voice reverberating through the studio. I don't owe anyone perfection. I am a mother. I am a woman. I am human. And if that's not enough for you... Her voice broke mid-sentence. She rose suddenly from her chair, the scraping of wood against the stage echoing like a scream. The audience gasped, a collective shockwave rippling through the room. Angelina stood tall, trembling, her breath rapid, her fists clenched at her sides. For a moment she glared at Sunny, her chest heaving, her expression caught between fury and heartbreak. Then, without another word, she turned on her heel. The cameras swiveled desperately to catch her as she strode off the stage, her long figure disappearing behind the velvet curtains. The sound of her heels striking against the floor echoed like gunshots in the stunned silence. The audience gasped again, some rising to see where she had gone, others covering their mouths in disbelief. A few clapped hesitantly, as though unsure whether to show support or mourn the wreckage of what had just unfolded. On stage, the panel was frozen. Joy Behar muttered something under her breath. Sarah Haynes blinked rapidly as though trying to process what she had just witnessed, and Whoopi leaned back heavily in her chair, exhaling a long, deep sigh. Sunny Hostin remained still, her face unreadable, her eyes fixed on the space where Angelina had vanished. For a brief second, the cameras caught something in her expression, not victory, not malice, but something far more complex. Resolve. The silence stretched on until Whoopi finally spoke, her voice carrying a weight that hushed the restless audience. Well, I think we're gonna take a break. The screen faded to black, leaving millions of viewers breathless, shaken, and desperate for answers. The blackout felt like a mercy, but it was short-lived. When the cameras returned from commercial, the air in the studio was still electric, the audience murmuring, unable to process what had just unfolded. Empty, glaringly empty, was the seat where Angelina Jolie had been sitting minutes before. Whoopi leaned forward, her face solemn, her tone careful. We've all seen strong moments on this show, but that was something else. Let's take a second to acknowledge the weight of what just happened. Her words were steady, but even she couldn't disguise the unease in her eyes. Joy Behar cleared her throat, her voice softer than usual. Look, I've been on this show a long time. We've had politicians storm out, comedians storm out, but Angelina Jolie? That's going to be one for the books. The audience laughed nervously, unsure whether to agree or stay quiet. The energy was fractured, torn between sympathy for Angelina and curiosity about Sunny's relentless questions. Sunny Hostin sat upright, her hands folded neatly, her expression unshaken. She glanced at the audience, then at the camera, speaking with measured precision. My job is to ask tough questions. That's what we do here. It's not about tearing anyone down, it's about accountability. I respect Angelina deeply. But the truth is, when you live in the public eye, the questions will follow you, no matter how painful they are. The audience offered a mixture of applause and boos, the division clear. Some saw her as courageous, others as cruel. And in the shadows of the set, behind the curtains, chaos was unfolding. Producers rushed after Angelina, who had disappeared down the hallway, her heels striking the floor with fury. Assistants whispered frantically into headsets, scrambling to control the narrative before it spiraled out of control. One witness described later what it was like backstage: Angelina pacing, her hair falling loose from its perfect styling, her breathing heavy, her hands trembling as she muttered under her breath. "I can't believe she said that. I can't believe this happened on live television." Her publicist hovered nearby, desperate to soothe her, whispering urgently, "We'll issue a statement. We'll handle this. But Angelina, if you don't go back out there, this will be everywhere." Angelina's response was sharp, final. "Let it be everywhere. I'm done." Back on stage, the show attempted to move forward, but the weight of the walkout lingered. Every joke felt hollow, every segue awkward. The audience couldn't stop whispering, some still clutching their phones, already typing frantically as the outside world began to ignite. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation were circulating on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Angelina walks out. Hashtag Sunny vs. Angelina. Hashtag The View Showdown. Millions watched and rewatched the moment her palms slammed against the desk, the tremor in her voice as she shouted, the finality of her storming out. Some defended her fiercely. "She's a mother first. Sunny crossed the line. That was cruel. Angelina deserves better." Others praised Sunny. "She asked the real questions. This is journalism, not a fan club." The debate spread like wildfire, talk shows and late-night hosts seizing on the drama, headlines plastering across every entertainment site. Angelina Jolie walks out of The View after heated clash with Sunny Hostin. News anchors dissected her every word, body language experts replayed her trembling hands, psychologists weighed in on the breaking point of composure. The world wasn't just watching, they were dissecting, analyzing, and choosing sides. For the audience that had been inside the studio, the memory lingered like a bruise. Some recalled the rawness in Angelina's eyes, others the unwavering force in Sunny's. They knew they had witnessed more than an interview. They had witnessed a rupture. And yet, beneath the headlines and hashtags, beneath the frenzy of speculation, the heart of the moment was painfully human, a mother, pushed to her limit, unraveling under the bright glare of lights and judgment. As the week unfolded, the fallout deepened. Angelina's representatives issued a brief statement. Angelina Jolie will not be making further comments on the incident. Her priority remains her children. It was terse, protective, a shield thrown up against the storm. Sunny, meanwhile, addressed the controversy in a measured tone the next day. "I respect Angelina. But when you come to this table, the questions are not always comfortable. That's the nature of truth." But the damage was already done. The showdown became legend, immortalized in clips, debated on podcasts, replayed endlessly online. And for those who had seen it unfold in real time, there was no forgetting the sight of Angelina Jolie, the icon, the humanitarian, the untouchable star, reduced in one moment to something achingly human, a mother defending her children with fire, and walking away from a stage that had pushed her too far. The story didn't end in the studio. It spilled out into every conversation, every screen, every corner of the internet. And it left a question that no panel, no headline, no clip could answer. Who was right? Who was wrong? Or was this simply the collision of two powerful women, both unwilling to bend, both standing for what they believed in, until the only resolution left was silence? That silence, heavy, unresolved, still lingers. And now it's your turn. What do you think? Did Sunny cross the line, or was she just doing her job? Was Angelina right to walk out, or should she have stayed to finish the fight? Tell us in the comments below. We want to hear your voice in this storm. And if you want more explosive, dramatic stories like this one, make sure you subscribe to Stage Storm, like this video, and turn on notifications. Because this is only the beginning.